The more I think about it, the more the idea of the A's just staying in Oakland kind of makes sense.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans, and welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about your Oakland A's all year long. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for a while now, and this is my sixth season here as a member of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 to get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. It's Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. We'll be doing an episode where we cover the whole Cubs series. That's going to be posted probably on Wednesday. So for those of you looking to see my thoughts on Game 1 of the Cubs series, I'll be patient because a couple of things we're going to talk about. And, the greatest twist, surprise ending for this wild, weird, strange season for the Oakland A's could very well be that Kramer versus Kramer rug pull ending of they didn't leave anyway. They stayed anyway. And a couple of weeks ago, I heard some rumblings about that. And I just thought, oh, this is kind of Pollyanna. This is a little bit of wishful thinking. This is the denial state of grief. But while I'm kind of resigned that the A's are going to leave Oakland and play in Sacramento, and I was trying to see the glass as half full, the reason why the glass is half full is because it was all the way full and half of it evaporated in the Sacramento sun that I experienced. Now, we all know the fans have wanted the A's to stay. The fans have been wanting to have a new stadium and ownership that gets behind the team. Instead, we have John Fisher, who guts the team, raises ticket prices, doesn't fix the ballpark, and then points to the fans and says, see, they're not showing up. It's not my fault. It behooved the A's to have a season that was similar to the Chicago White Sox, what they're having right now, as a way to sort of say, see, this team's an absolute disaster. But the A's have been, well, they're going to have a losing season. We know that, but it's not going to be a disaster. It's not going to be a 100-loss season. It'll probably be a low 90 loss season, which is a huge improvement over last year. And they've been pretty good this year, save for that 2-month stretch. They've made a lot of improvements, but this is not about the product on the field. This is about, and it actually doesn't have much to do with the fans. As much as fans want to see the team stay and hope that their reverse boycotts and last dive bar and sell t-shirts, that's all great, and that shows a great morale, and it gives us a sense of banding together and having a sense of community. But we all know that there are things that are much more influential that are green and gold, that are not the A's uniforms. Money is always going to play a part of this. And I think money and saving face are two things that we have to consider could drive the A's back to Oakland. Now, I don't think you can say enough of the Scott Boras rumblings. Scott Boras talking about the artificial turf that they want to put on the field in Sacramento. Now, it's not the same artificial turf that they would have had at Veterans Stadium or Three Rivers Stadium or Riverfront during the 70s, but it's still something that will turn the field into a frying pan. And the Players Association has not signed off on it. That is no small thing. That is no small thing to say that the players are going to look and say, hey, this isn't the major leagues. You're not putting us in a major league facility. This doesn't have what a major league facility has, needs, or requires, and it will be dangerous to play on this field. But the other thing to remember is who's saying it. And that's the more important thing. I told you it was too damn hot there. I went to a freaking game there. It's hot. It's stupid hot. You cannot have a Major League Baseball team playing in those conditions in a day game in the summer. I told you that. I reported that. I tried to make a video there, but my camera kept shutting down. Do you know why? It was too hot. But your pal Sully, that's me, I like to think I have some influence. Scott Boras. Now, before anyone says Scott Boras has lost his touch because he had a rough year last year with his clients, he's about to put Juan Soto out into the world. Juan Soto is a legitimate MVP candidate. Juan Soto is in his prime. Juan Soto has already checked everything off of your proverbial bucket list, except the MVP award, but he's been an all-star. He's had tremendous highlights. He's been a World Series hero, World Series champion, and he has shown he can shine in the big lights of New York. And he is going to be a free agent. And Boras will climb back to the top of influential agents once Juan Soto lands the massive deal, whoever will churn out the most money. Could be the Yankees, could be the Mets, could be the Cubs. A lot of teams with a ton of money could use a Juan Soto. Now, of course, Juan Soto is not signing with the A's. But Juan Soto's agent, Scott Boras, is the one making these complaints. Scott Boras remains a very powerful agent of players. What agent in their right mind would allow their client to sign more than a one-year contract with the Oakland A's? Unless they are completely out of options, you're almost better off having your client sign in Korea or Japan than to sign with the Oakland A's and play in a substandard facility. Hey, Sacramento could be a wonderful place to have a Major League Baseball team. And if they had a stadium, and as I said a few months ago, if multi-purpose ballparks were still out there and you could plop a team in a city without turning into this nightmare, then maybe you could. But Scott Boras is probably not the only agent thinking this. Scott Boras is probably not the only agent saying, hey, fellas, we can't have this. And if we do have this, don't sign there. So the idea of the A's improving their team, a team that has made about a 20-game swing from 2023 to 2024, and with the expanded playoffs, if they were merely mediocre for the first half and they play like they have the second half, this team could be a mid-80 win ball club. They could be a playoff team. But the playoffs may not even be played there. Do you know why? Major League Baseball sees this is a substandard product. Once again, showing a complete lack of planning. But this goes beyond just signing players and saving face. This goes to something that Las Vegas could be, well, if they're smart and decide they do not want to be in business with the Fishers, could get them to say, hey, wait a minute, this is not what we bargained for. And that could put a gigantic wrench in Las Vegas. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. Watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as few as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed, and it's available in more than 30 states across the country, including Texas, Georgia, and right here in California. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Thanks so much for making Locked On A's your first listen today. Now check out my other show, Locked On MLB, where I get you prepared for the Fall Classic. I got it covered every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Okay, now think about this for a second. The A's had made an agreement with the city of Las Vegas. Now, Las Vegas has knocked down the Tropicana. Las Vegas wants a baseball team. They probably really, really want a basketball team, but I digress. They want a baseball team. Now, would they rather have an expansion team? Probably. But they're getting in bed with Fisher. But at this point, how much in bed are they? They've knocked down the Tropicana. They've done a few promos. That's cute. Now, Fisher has clearly not raised the money. He has not raised the money. Prove me wrong. The way this story has gone this whole time, they've been announcing when they open up, hedge funds and all and we're dealing with this investor group and that investor group. But if they had the money, they'd be doing jumping jacks and cartwheels and having Stomper jump up and down and say, we got the dough, we got the dough. We would know it if they got it. The same reason if I won an Emmy, you'd know it. Do you know why? I'd move that plastic helmet over there and put my Emmy right there. This whole thing is based so much on trying to save face and get people excited about this as a potential landing spot. You can't look me in the eye and say that if they had the dough in the bank to do this, we would be hearing about it. We're hearing things, maybe we'll sell personal seat licenses and all this other nonsense. But if that's not enough for Vegas to say, hey, wait a minute, is this a breach of contract? Are you not doing what you said you were going to do? One of the things that in the agreement, the A's promised the city of Las Vegas that they will put a competitive product on the field by the time they got to Vegas. Remember when this deal was struck, they were coming off a 110 some odd loss season of 2023. I'm sure Vegas was like, hey, we don't want a doormat team. We don't want a garbage team. When they got a new team, the first team through the gate were the Golden Knights, who played in the Stanley Cup final their first year. And their next team were the Raiders, which, all right, they didn't go into the Super Bowl or anything like that, but the NFL is different, especially in the gambling community. This wouldn't be the first team in. It's a smaller market than the A's. It's a smaller television market than the A's. And most of the people there are either transplant or Dodger fans. So if they came in with a brand spanking new stadium, but a lousy ball club, they knew that that would be a recipe for disaster, not what they wanted. Well, now you have the most powerful agent out there saying, basically saying, we're not going to sign with the A's without saying we're not going to sign with the A's. They're not going to do collusion or do something out of sorts. But it's one of those things that's the equivalent of the dude in The Untouchables in the white suit saying, nice house. It would be a shame if anything happened to it. Oh, you got a super hot artificial turf here. It'd be a shame if no player signs with your team. And if no player signs with their team and no agent would want to have an extension, that means the team that would wind up in Las Vegas if everything went right. And so far, how's that batting average going of everything going right? But if everything goes right, they're going to be in there in what, 2028? Maybe, probably 2029. What are the chances? Yes, I know teams can turn things around. We saw the Royals went from a 100 loss team last year to a winning season this year. We saw Arizona and Texas will be 100 loss teams in 2021 playing in the World Series against each other in 2023. But that required in each of those instances, especially Texas, spending dough. And Kansas City spent dough. Arizona was a little more of a fluke, but they also made shrewd moves. This would all have to be done through their farm system and shrewd trades because they wouldn't be able to sign anybody. Not a soul. You couldn't whiff on a trade like you did with Matt Olson again. So couldn't that be looked as a breach of contract? That you don't have the money and you are not going to bring a good quality product into here. This is not what we paid for. Now, they could probably find another investor, another owner somewhere who wants to do this in Vegas. I still don't understand the appeal of Vegas as a Major League Baseball franchise, but I seem to be alone in that. But if it's such a good deal, couldn't they say, hey, you didn't raise the money and you're going to put a lousy product on the field. That's not what we paid for. We're done. Breach of contract. Toodles. Breach of contract is what got Catfish Hunter to leave the A's and could be what to get Las Vegas to leave the A's. And there you have it. I mean, I think Las Vegas should say it right now. We don't have to do business with you. You haven't held up your end of the bargain. We'd rather put something else there or put the ballpark up there and lure someone else. Lure the White Sox, who stink. But at least someone could encourage them to sign with them. But there's another factor that happened and that was reported in June that is looming over all this. And if baseball had a commissioner, and you could make the argument that they don't, they would lift two things that could make life a lot easier and in the end make a lot of people a lot of money. Let's hear from our friends over at FanDuel. You've heard us talk about FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. We'll have something a little different for you right now. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. Say that 3 times fast. All you'll need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks so much for making Locked On A's your first listen today. For your second listen to more of me. I'm the host of the Locked On MLB podcast. I'm here to provide you a national perspective with my point of view, sometimes my humor, sometimes my silliness, sometimes my passion. I got it all for you. I'm going to help you cover the Major League Baseball playoffs through the dog days of summer. Prepare for the Fall Classic with me, your pal Sully. I've been covering it every single day at Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. All right, I've talked a lot of times about the fact that the San Francisco Giants have the territorial rights for the South Bay, which they do not need. It's ridiculous. It's arcane, and it's not based upon anything that is relevant in 2024, and it is allowing the demise of the A's to be extended for reasons we don't have. If Commissioner Baseball should step in and say, all right, lift those. And if an investor comes in San Jose, then sure, let's go ahead and do it. Now, another thing, though, needs to be discussed. Back in June, it was reported in the San Francisco Chronicle that a gag order was placed by Major League Baseball on potential Bay Area investors and buyers of the Oakland A's. In other words, anyone who came out publicly and said, hey, I'm willing to buy the team from the Fishers would be penalized, fined, and be removed from any potential approved buyer list for Major League Baseball. You know, the free market. I'm sure a lot of those people have highlighted copies of The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, and yet still they're involved in this whole nonsense of gag orders preventing the free market from taking place. I'm no libertarian or anything like that, but hey, isn't this supposed to be businesses and the free market and all this other stuff? Isn't that what we're told is why the A's are leaving? If there is a potential ownership in the Bay Area to take over the A's, why not? And Manfred, because he's not an honest man, said in the article, our Oakland decisions have been made. What happens in Oakland is between the citizens of Oakland and their elected officials. No, it isn't. When you have a gag order on that, there are lots and lots of rich people in the San Francisco Bay Area. Some are as rich as John Fisher, who did exactly nothing in his life to earn said money. This is not working. This plan is not working. We can demonstrate it's not working. They're in a situation in the stadium that the Oakland Coliseum is obsolete. Their plan to move to Sacramento is ill-conceived. Their plan to move to Las Vegas is underfunded and underprepared and possibly a breach of contract. At some point, for the good of the game, doesn't the commissioner of baseball say, yikes, Johnny boy, maybe this isn't working. Maybe it's time to bite the proverbial bullet, say you gave it a try, and sell the team to a Bay Area investor. And maybe that Bay Area investor has to find a way to get the private money to build a ballpark, either in the parking lot of the Coliseum or next to Laney College or in San Jose or wherever the hell it will be, or in Sacramento. Either way, they get more money if they stay in Oakland because of the television deal. Probably more money than they got if they went to Sacramento, and a hell of a lot more money they got if they went to Las Vegas. It would behoove them to do this. And for John Fisher, yes, I understand there's a certain amount of stubbornness here. There's a certain amount of don't you tell me what to do with my money. Okay? But imagine this scenario. One act by Fisher could rid him of all this tension in his life, make him, if not loved, then at least not as hated, and to see the glass half full for himself, he walks away with billions of dollars in one of the greatest examples of failing upward in the history of humanity. At this point, you have to lift that gag order. You lift the gag order and you lift the territorial rights. And maybe part of the payment of the sale of the A's is a payment to the Giants or something like that to smooth things over for territorial rights that they no longer need. But that's not even the point. The point is, at this point, Vegas probably can say, or do that thing that the blackjack dealers do. We're done. No, we don't need. You're a mess. You don't know what you're doing. You don't have the money, and the product you're going to bring here will suck, and that's not what we're paying for. So to Delu, we can get someone else, and immediately call the White Sox up, or maybe the Rays, before they build a stadium on the exact spot where all their problems came from. But for Fisher to say, hey, maybe I can take this thing off my chest and maybe I can find some happiness with billions of dollars. Maybe. But the money from the television revenue will be greater in Oakland. Sacramento's not going to work not until they have a stadium, and they don't have a stadium. And you're not going to build a temporary stadium. So if the move to Sacramento is a permanent one, then you have to make it a permanent one and start building a major league stadium there. Because playing it in a minor league stadium on a frying pan will mean no players will sign. This is not about, oh, I just want the happiness of my team here, blah, blah, blah. This is about financially, this could be a catastrophe, and Las Vegas has every right to raise a middle finger. Which brings us to the anniversary that we had over the weekend of something that took place on September 15th, 1931. In front of about 1,500 people at Shibe Park, the A's won the pennant. It was a day game on a Tuesday in the middle of the Great Depression. So forgive Philadelphia fans for not showing up. But they won the pennant. Their third straight pennant, by the way. This was in the time when the A's were playing in the same, at the same time as Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, Murderers Row in the American League. And the A's won 3 straight pennants, with them all still putting out great numbers. In fact, they won that year. They won the pennant with 107 wins out of 154 games, with a 13.5 game lead over the Yankees, who won 94 games, by the way. Connie Mack won the pennant. It was filled with Hall of Famers. Lefty Grove was on the team. Al Simmons was on the team. Jimmy Fox was on the team. Lots of Hall of Fame. Mickey Cochran was on that team. A lot of Hall of Famers. They wound up losing a great World Series to the St. Louis Cardinals. Why am I bringing that up? Other than the fact it was the anniversary for it. That was the last pennant the A's won in Philadelphia. And for the next bunch of years, they kept Connie Mack. By they, I mean Connie Mack's kids. Kept Connie Mack propped up. He was an old man in 31, and he managed until 50. And they stubbornly kept him in there, trying to get that one more pennant, win one more for the old man. But that 31 was the last one. And chances are, if Connie Mack stepped down and the Mack family sold, they'd probably still be in Philadelphia right now. And the Phillies probably would have been the team to move. I did a whole video about that. I'm not going to recap that. But that pennant they won in 31 was the last time the A's went to the World Series until right there, the 72 World Series. And they had a pit stop in Kansas City. Stubborn ownership wrecked the Philadelphia A's. Stubborn ownership is currently wrecking the Oakland A's. And they may be Sacramento, they may be Las Vegas, but it may make financial sense to say, no, let's get a Bay Area investor, keep him here and build a stadium and put an expansion team in Las Vegas. And with the expansion team, you get an expansion fee. So this way, Fisher becomes a billionaire. The A's organization becomes get a new home and collect the TV revenue. And Major League Baseball gets hundreds of millions of dollars based on the new expansion fees. So that's a scenario where the A's stay in Oakland that isn't tugging at the heartstrings or wanting to have James Earl Jones say, people will come, Ray. No, it's based on green. Now, the only green that needs to be relieved is envy. The only emotion that needs to be quenched is that of stubbornness. Because if they do that, think about it, Fish. If you do that and you stop being so stubborn, you could be a billionaire again. Wouldn't that nice? So follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And you can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Making the plea for good hold card cash. This has been Locked On A's. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.